So through the end of my schooling, I would search and search to see where a pregnancy center was. I finally got a hold of Jennifer Chase down in Wichita, Kansas, and she said, "Oh, Janet, you need to speak with Heartbeat International." I called them and they were so gracious and said, "Yes, we actually have a book of how to start a center. We're so glad that God's called this on your heart." We also put together a small board of directors, began having the board meetings, and we also found a location. We then had someone, the Kindles, say, "We want to open our bed and breakfast in Wells, Kansas, and open it to you for our first fundraiser." That fundraiser was called Death by Chocolate for Life. I was able to share the vision of my heart in 2 different sessions of sit-down desserts, and people came forward. We were able to raise $1,100 that night. And so we had a logo, we had a location, we had a 501c3 status, we had volunteers, and we opened our doors. We waited, and then we had our first client. And when she came to the door, I think 3 of us jumped up off the couch and said, "Hi, can we help you?" She said, "Do you do pregnancy tests here?" We said, "Yes, we do." Her and her husband then moved to Oklahoma and became Christian house parents for a boys' academy. And that's the last I knew of them. But you never quite forget those first few clients. A week before, there were no tickets sold, very few, if any, and I just kept saying, "Oh Lord, just let us make $1,000. Let us just make $1,000 to be able to help pay for our speaker." And then about 4 days before our banquet, the phone started ringing off the hook. We sold 183 tickets, and that night, God blessed us exceedingly and abundantly beyond all we could ever think or imagine, and He gave us $18,000. We were able to continue our work, and things began to go good, except for when Christmas Eve came. Christmas Eve came and our office was broken into. I went in and I remember the scripture that came to mind was, "What you intended for harm, God intended for good." God continued to bless the Pregnancy Service Center, and we remained open. I was able to eat lunch with 7th graders and 8th graders. I was able to talk to them about what it means to be respecting yourself, that it's not okay to throw yourself away, that it is true that you will have physical, spiritual, and emotional pain. I was even able to share the gospel at some points. Although I couldn't do it in class, they would walk up to me after class. "Why did you survive so much in your life from your testimony?" And I was able to share why, and that's Jesus Christ. And we began just putting money into savings. We want to be full medical, and God just began opening doors and people began jumping on board. It was in 2007, during that capital campaign, that God did a change in my life. He asked me to let go of the Pregnancy Service Center. At that time, Robin Kerr had been hired as my client service manager, and I went to my board of directors, my husband and I, and said, "God is calling us to Colorado Springs, and He's asking us to step down from the Pregnancy Service Center." And with many tears and many, many memories, we let go. And it was hard and it was painful, but I look at what God has done through Robin and through Tina and through all of you, and I am just beyond ecstatic. I thank you so much for how you've carried on the vision of God for Pregnancy Service Center.
My PSC journey began nearly 10 years ago. I began volunteering at PSC and soon came on staff. I still remember when Janet, the executive director at that time, said she was moving. She said, "Take care of PSC, okay?" Little did I know what that meant. I was only 24 years old at the time. I had no intention on becoming the PSC executive director. My husband Brent and I were openly pursuing missions and hoping to possibly move overseas. The Lord opened our hearts to see PSC was an incredible ministry the Lord was leading us to, and so I chose to accept the position, and we stayed in Salina. My 4 years at PSC involved great growth and challenges. Soon after Janet left, the board chose to convert PSC to a medical center offering ultrasound. This took much training, traveling, a move to a bigger facility, more staff, more volunteers, more funding, and more services to clients. He supplied our every need. I had never seen so many volunteers come together to make something happen. If we had a need, it was met. We needed a medical director. Dr. Schroeder agreed. We needed a nurse manager, of whom we couldn't afford. Judy Beck volunteered. We needed more funds, so Maggie Himmer volunteered to be our banquet coordinator. Over and over, it happened through prayer. It was truly beautiful. The Lord had given me a special passion to see the center ran with excellence as it embarked on this new medical adventure. This was something I was able to devote much time and energy to during that stage of my life, and I'm thankful God chooses to use people like me in His kingdom work. Martha Beggs, the board chairman, would always say, God just wants to show off, and that He does at PSC. I knew my time in leadership at PSC would eventually be over when we became pregnant with our first child. I just hired Tina Price for the Client Services Director. After her interview, I immediately called a board member and said, I just met an amazing person. She could become the next director. I had the amazing privilege of seeing many mothers choose life because of PSC. Students hear about God's design of purity before marriage. Post-abortive of women experience healing. Many clients trust Jesus in their life, and babies and families live with hope, not death. PSC has always been a place of love, service, care, and a place where Jesus works,